Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this Living in Oneness program, which we're calling Restore and Rejuvenate Your Environment. And you'll understand why we're calling it environment with an I end in a moment. Today's guest, David Sandoval, has made it his life's mission to change the world for the better. From nutrition and the environment to domestic violence and poverty, Dave has advocated on behalf of many causes. He's invited people into his home to personally help them get healthy, lose weight, or achieve their goals. Plus, through his mentorship program, he has inspired all kinds of people to get out into the world and make a difference. Indeed, Dave bases his efforts in Gandhi's philosophy, be the change you wish to see in the world. And specifically, Dave is here today to discuss his new book, The Toxin That Came to Dinner. The book raises awareness about the detrimental health effects of pesticides in our food and what you can do to restore and rejuvenate your health in response to that. So Dave, welcome to Living in Oneness.
Oh, wow. Such a pleasure to be here. And I am looking forward to today's show.
Great. Yeah, we are as well. And, you know, of course, I introduced you with that relatively short bio. And before we get into the book, I'm always interested in stories of people who are health advocates, because there always tends to be like a waking up moment where like everything changed for them. And I was just curious if you could give us a little bit more background or information about your story. Like what was it in your life that that the light went on and, you know, things changed and you and then you became an advocate for health and feeling led to do that for others. What was that turning point for you?
Well, I think that it's a little bit like a salmon, you know, once they turn and start swimming upstream, there's a series of jumps that they make, you know. What happened for me is I was, I guess, blessed in my life to have many, many challenges. And one of those challenges was homelessness at a very young age. And I was lucky to be taken off of the street in a way by my amazing auntie, who gave me a beautiful, loving home with her family. And a short while later, she died of multiple sclerosis. And the doctors told me it was because of the food she ate, the microwave food, the fast food, the preservatives, the artificial colorings, you know, the artificial sweeteners, the hydrogenated oils. And I realized that what we thought was food was actually potentially poisoning us. And it scared me. It scared me a lot. And so I began to make a change in my own life and examine, you know, what is the threat to our health from food? And what I discovered became a life's mission.
Nice. Yeah, lovely. So thank you for sharing that. It's just, those stories are so powerful, and I'm always like honor everyone's individual path to it. So so just really a deep bow to you for your path and how you've gotten to this and how you're helping others do it. So with that, let's get to the book. And it's titled The Toxin That Came to Dinner, which is a really ominous title. Generally, the book speaks about the detrimental health effects of pesticides in our food. And specifically, you focus on glyphosate, which is the primary chemical in that pesticide Roundup. So one of the early chapters of the book is titled The Big Problem, which tells us that pesticides and especially glyphosate kill more than just weeds. So can you tell us, as it relates to the human body, what else it's killing?
So they did some studies in order to, I guess, protect themselves. And they said, you know, the human body doesn't have a metabolic pathway to digest glyphosate. And so really, you know, we're not going to be harmed by it. But what they did not tell you is that Roundup and glyphosate are designed to kill all of the organisms that are not genetically modified in any environment. And they did not tell you that the residue of glyphosate would be significant in the food that you're eating. And so you can't wash it off, you can't cook it off. There's no way to get glyphosate out of the food. And when the food goes into your body, it eventually ends up in your gut. And your gut is a very special place because it's full of organisms. It's full of microorganisms called friendly bacteria that are essential to your immune system, to your digestion, and ultimately to your health. And what they did not tell you is that this will kill those organisms, that glyphosate can kill those organisms in your gut. And no, you will not digest it, but it will kill those organisms that are vital to your health. And when those organisms die in your gut, then your body begins to die. And it is evidenced. There is so much evidence in this book, 60 short pages packed with nothing but evidence of the danger that we are facing and the solutions that we can employ.
Yeah, and what was a real eye-opener to me in the book was the studies that you were referencing, and there's a study that was published in the Journal of Organic Systems, and where you mentioned there's this alarming correlation over the past 20 years between glyphosate and the occurrence of many diseases in the US, and just the visuals are something, because you have all of these graphs that are reproduced in the book, and it just shows it's almost spikes, right? Like there's like we're going along in life, and all of a sudden these charts spike, and the occurrence of the disease across all sorts of different dysfunctions, it just goes up. And can you tell us what some of those disorders are that have been impacted by the use of the chemical?
Well, the list is so long and so alarming. I could tell you that autoimmune diseases like lupus and Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis and leaky gut syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS as they call it, Crohn's disease, and these things, fatty acid liver disease, of course, as we know that the World Health Organization called it a probable health hazard, that the state of California has deemed it to be a cancer-causing agent, that the city of Los Angeles has banned its use, and yet still it's growing and growing and growing. It's in 75% of our food that we eat. It's in our water. It's on the lawns that we walk in. And so what's happening is the use of glyphosate started in 1980. And at that time, autoimmune diseases and leaky gut and autism and Alzheimer's and fatty acid liver disease and all types of other conditions were relatively small in our population. A relatively tiny amount of our population had those conditions. And then with the increased use of glyphosate, since the 1980s, you have an identical increased rate of these conditions. And it is absolutely evident. It is absolutely undeniable that there is a correlation. And in our research, we have shown that Alzheimer's, autism, autoimmune diseases, all of these, and we haven't even gotten out of the A's yet in the A to Z of diseases.
Yeah, wow. I mean, and that's amazing. And then you said the 1980s. I mean, it's a generation almost of humanity and human existence that has been under the impact of this. And so it's been a long time, and it's just amazing to look at those charts in your book. And you
in
talk
one generation.
Yeah. And you talk in your book about the gut-brain connection. So glyphosate is having this really intense detrimental effect on our gut and what's in our gut. And you also talk about the gut-brain connection, and I think people have heard it in various respects before, but can you tell us a little bit about why that's so important, and how that operates in the human body?
So people sometimes don't realize how serious we are when we call our gut microbiome our second brain. So in order to illustrate that we're not just using a terminology, the second brain, that it actually is connected from birth to our first brain. So let me explain from a genetic sense that when a sperm goes into an egg and we have, you know, the conception, right, at that time, then immediately there'll be 3 strands of DNA form. And in one strand, they're lined up in parallel, like my 3 fingers. In one strand is your hair, your bones, your teeth, your nails, your myofascial material, like that. All that's in one strand. And the next strand is your musculature, your lymph fluid, your organs, you know, your blood, and these things, right? In the next strand are only 2 things, your brain and your gut, okay? They're identical twins. Upon conception, your brain and your gut form together in the same DNA strand, okay? The same genetic strand, of which there are only 3. And so the brain and the gut split up the duties of the body. They are the brain of the body. It's not first and second. It's literally, they are the brain of the body. To illustrate that, 70% of the serotonin that we believed came from our brain actually comes from our gut. Serotonin controls your mood, so depression, addiction, right? These things directly attributed to gut health. Secondly, our immune system, 70% of all immune response does not come from our brain. The signals that trigger our immune system, what are called neurotransmissions, we think of those from the brain. They're coming from our gut. 70% of the neurotransmissions that control our immune system come from our gut. You might ask why. If you've ever seen those detective shows and they want to find out about you, they look in your trash and they look in your old computers to find out what you wanted to discard, right? Well, the stuff that you are trying to discard is the trash, and it will tell you about what might be infecting this body. So by looking into the trash can of the body, into the colon, our body's immune system designs a response to everything that's going wrong, because everything that's going wrong ends up manifesting itself in our gut. And so our gut is, in fact, vitally important to our immunity, to our mood, okay, and also to other hormonal balances. So if you're not getting deep sleep, if you don't have enough testosterone, all of these things that are so common in society today, foggy brain, right, malnutrition, all of these things are directly tied to our second brain, or as we now know it, just our brain, period, our lower brain.
Yeah, and with the exposure over this past generation to glyphosate, then you know it's no wonder this ripple of all of these illnesses, because we're really, I mean, if you're talking about the gut and the brain being that closely linked, it sounds like in my lay interpretation that we're really killing half of our brain, our true brain, if we're considering the whole body to be the brain.
Yes, when the gut begins to die, then our head follows. And so whatever happens to our gut happens to our brain and our head. And this has been proven scientifically. This is why our mood, our addiction, these pathways that lead to addiction are opened up in the gut but end up in the brain. So we can't, these addictive pathways, these depression pathways, these obesity pathways, you cannot lose weight. And you're trying everything, but you can't lose weight. It's because your gut is not properly separating nutrients and toxins. Even though you think you're eating well and you think you're exercising and you can't lose weight and you're down on yourself and you don't know what's wrong, I guarantee you fix the gut, you fix the problem.
And so there's 2 things there that I think are really worth just taking a deeper dive into. One was what you just said about we think we're eating well. right? And so how are you experiencing that with the people that you work with? Like, what's the typical story that somebody who thinks they're eating well comes up with when they talk to you about this kind of thing?
So I developed the most effective weight loss, weight management, weight balancing program that the world's ever seen. And about 10 to 20% of the people who did it would report to me that it made them sick and it didn't work at all. And I'm like, this is impossible. You must be cheating. I mean, I feel bad for thinking these things, but I'm going to admit to you, I'm going to be vulnerable. I thought they must be lying to me or cheating, because my program works with every person I've ever tried it with, right? Then I found out something. I found out that if your gut isn't well, that no amount of good nutrition is going to help. And then I found those people, I gave them the biomedic that I've created to repair the gut, and all of a sudden, it didn't make them sick. They did lose weight. And I realized that it was my deficiency, not theirs. My failure to address the entire problem, which is, I always say, you've got to get to the root of the problem. And here I was, I personally didn't get to the entire root of the problem because I was not aware of glyphosate until just a few years ago. It's, you know what I mean? So once I became aware, we did something about it. But I'm just admitting to you that my own evidence is, even with a perfect diet, some people did not lose weight.
Okay. So it's really not so much even a matter of people trying to spin a certain diet as being healthy, and it's not. I mean, it could truly be a healthy diet. It's just that there's so much damage that's been done that has to be taken care of first before the health can follow from eating well.
And the reason why a paleo diet has become more effective for many people is because your gut microbiome is less affected. And this isn't a good thing. This is a bad thing. You know what I mean? They're going to super simple foods just so your body doesn't have to work hard at all. You know what I mean? And the problem is you're actually poisoning your body in the process, but that's a whole different story. So when you don't need to just dumb down your body, you need to raise its intelligence of the gut, and everything changes.
Yeah, and
if you ever have a gut feeling, you know, that intuition, and when you're depressed and you're sad, where does it hurt? It hurts in your gut. Do you know why? Because your body has shut down the production of serotonin, and you can actually feel it in your gut. And the sadness immediately follows because there's no more serotonin being produced because you're shutting down your gut. And when that happens, sadness ensues. And all you have to do is breathe deeply, open up your chest, you know what I mean? And of course, obviously, this is just when we're sad and depressed, you could change your mood. But when you tighten up your gut, you shut down serotonin. And also, when you hear something and you suddenly get this gut feeling that something's wrong, that is your intuition tightening up your gut. It shuts down your serotonin, and you get that gut feeling that something's wrong. This is the body's intelligence at the highest level. So when your gut isn't healthy, your intuition goes away, and your decision-making process gets worse and worse. And this is a spiritual side of gut health that we never really think about.
And it's functionally, it sounds like that by compromising the gut, and if we're considering the gut to be in harmony with the brain, ideally, when that gut's compromised, that function is compromised as well.
Yes, the body, mind, spirit, when your body becomes functioning in the proper way, then your mind starts functioning in the proper way, and your spirit is set free to explore and to grow.
And the
body, mind, that order for a reason. You're awesome, bro, for pointing that out.
So the other thing that, you know, is amazing to me, and you brought this to light in your book, was that, you know, as we said, over the past generation or so with the use of glyphosate, you know, it's really been pervasive and it's all over the place. And then unfortunately, then we've gotten to this point where the ill effects and the illnesses and the discord people are feeling have sort of been normalized. It's like this is the way it is, and it's almost as if the conditions have been created for people just to think, well, this is part of life, is this, that I'm just not supposed to feel well, or as I get older, I feel less well, and we've normalized it, and it doesn't have to be so, according to what you're saying.
Yeah, two stories. I met Jean Clement when she was 119. I have met over 50 octogenarians, people who are 100 years older or more. And I also have friends who have died of natural causes at 55. So there's something wrong here, okay? So let me teach you about frog soup. If you take a frog and put it in hot water, it will jump out. If you put it in cold water, it will jump out. But if you put it in warm water, it will be nice and cozy. You could then turn the water up. It'll get warmer and warmer until the frog is in boiling water and dead. And it just was comfortable and a little more comfortable. When you put on the shower and you start out with warm water and you end up with hot, steamy water because you keep turning it hotter and hotter, well, we do that with our health. We start and we're in perfect health. Then we accept one little ache or pain and we attribute it to a sports injury, another ache or pain, and we attribute it to, whatever. But pretty soon we're accepting a long laundry list of things that are less than ideal health, and we're just like that frog. And we don't realize we could get out of the water. We can change. We could dramatically improve our destiny. And those last 10 to 15 years of our life do not have to be miserable. They could be glorious. And they could be at 90 to 105 instead of at 60 to 75. I want my last 15 years of my life not to start at 60, not to start at 70, not to start at 80. You know what I mean? I want the last 15 years of my life to start at 99.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned your friend who was 55, so it's like the last 50 years of life to be your best. And you also, I noted you mentioned like dying of natural causes, quote unquote, at 55. And that just, it seems like that's even in a misnomer. It shouldn't be possible, or for us to even consider that there's such a thing as dying of natural causes at 55.
How could your body wear out at 55 when we have enough HGH and enough stem cell activity where we could live to be 160 according to scientists? That means we have enough stem cell regeneration and enough human growth hormone to keep us alive till we're 160. Okay, now maybe because of mathematics, 110 or 120 is more likely. You know what I mean? But at the same time, 55 is unacceptable.
Absolutely. Yeah, got it. The other thing, you already alluded to this, and I want to go back to it because I think it's really eye-opening. You talked about the processes of nature, and you write about this in the book when you start getting into the solutions. And you said that in nature, blocking damage is the first level of defense. And it makes complete sense, right? So if we want to defend ourselves, or if nature is defending itself from something, just to prevention is like key. And then if that can't happen, then suppressing is the second option, because the more you suppress damage, the less that it needs to be repaired. And then in nature, repair is always the last resort. So can you talk about that, that dynamic in the context of what you're teaching about health and diet, and really addressing this pervasive issue of glyphosate throughout the world?
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of you have studied martial arts, and you know that, of course, if you could block somebody, then they can't hurt you. If you could move out of the way and make them barely hit you, then you don't get hurt as bad, right? But if you're right in the middle of it and you can't avoid it, you have to recover afterwards. And so in nature, it's the same thing. You will block something from happening with alkaloids, right? You will slow down the damage it might cause with things like bioflavonoids, or you're going to repair it with antioxidants, like superoxide dismutase and nutrients. And so in this instance, we would love to stop the use of glyphosate, but we can't. It's increasing, not decreasing. The European Union just approved its use for 5 more years. Okay? No GMOs in the European Union, but glyphosate, yes. Okay? So now we see farmers more and more getting what are called Roundup ready crops, where they buy the seed that's meant to be used with Roundup. So we're not getting less. And check this out. They're now spraying regular non-GMO crops with glyphosate so they die, and it's easier to harvest them. They spray them just a week before harvest. The plants begin to die, and it's easier for the machine to go and harvest it because the stalks aren't so stiff. So the blades don't wear out, the machines move faster, they make more money, and we are getting sicker. It's disgusting. So even that symbol non-GMO does not protect you from glyphosate anymore. Okay? So I forget where this started, but the bottom line is that that this is everywhere. We can't block it. If we eat organic, we could suppress it, but we can't avoid it in our air, our water, our parks, you know, this type of thing. So what we're left to do is to get rid of it once it's in our body. And I came up with a product that is made with really powerful herbs and food extracts that is able to actually lift it out of the body, remove it from the body, and then repair the damage that it has done to the body, because we're at that point to where we're not blocking it, we're having difficulty suppressing it, so we've got to be aggressive in our repair. And I have the only clinically proven solution to this, you know, glyphosate Roundup type of pollution.
Yeah, and the metaphor was that you were using the martial arts metaphor. So basically what you're saying is that the pervasiveness of the glyphosate is really, using your metaphor, punching us in the face constantly based on its pervasiveness in the environment and even
defend ourselves. It's the last resort. It's the last resort of a martial artist to go on the offense and start kicking ass. Excuse me. You know what I mean? But that's what we've had to do. So we are now on the offense. We're going after the bad guys. We're meeting them where they are, and we are, you know what, and taking names.
Yeah. You know, so, and one of the things I want to just go back to really quickly, because, you know, I feel like I'm fairly well informed, but I won't say I'm perfectly informed. And what I hadn't realized, which I think bears repeating, is, you know, you had mentioned that glyphosate is used even on with organic non-GMO crops to weaken them so that they're easier to harvest. And that just seems like if I would have heard that for the first time, you know, a year or two ago, it just would have seemed so weird that it's not possible. But I think it's worth repeating, because if you're paying attention to labels when you're buying your food, to your point, if it just says it's non-GMO, that isn't going to be a guarantee that you're not being exposed.
Absolutely. And I want to, because my internet signal, I see it weakening. I'm in a very rural area, and I need to get a couple points out in case I get dropped, right? That there's no laws protecting us. Our government isn't protecting us. The labeling laws aren't protecting us. There's no place on your label that it says glyphosate's in there, yet it's in 75% of the food on our shelves. Cheerios that we feed our babies have glyphosate, my friend. The umbilical cords of mothers with newborn babies are showing glyphosate. Every golfer on the planet has to be scared to death because it's all over golf courses, public housing, government buildings, and on the roads next to it, where they don't want any weeds to grow next to the roads, they spray it there, and they're supposed to wait 70 hours before anybody comes near it, and they don't. And so this is a very high level. I don't believe in conspiracies because we know it's happening.
Oh, and there goes a little bit of his connection. Well, hopefully he will come back shortly. He self-prophesized that his connection was weak, and there you go. So I'm just going to add in here while we're waiting for David to come back, that in the context of what we're doing here in Humanities Team and in the context of oneness, this, to me, it feels like that this is this kind of practice. And in a way, this is a back to the future thing, because David writes in his book that we've seen it with DDT. So, a couple generations ago, DDT was the thing that was sort of sprayed liberally all over the place, and we were told there were no harmful effects, and yet now we're at the point where it's been recognized that it is dangerous, and that there have been steps taken now to remove it from the environment. And we could also say the same thing has occurred with tobacco, big tobacco. And 3 generations ago, tobacco was actually being promoted as being healthy, and you would have these crazy ads. You could probably look them up online, where doctors were espousing the health benefits of tobacco, and you see doctors smoking cigarettes. It's kind of insane now. So it's the same kind of dynamic, it seems, now with this glyphosate phenomenon, where we are actually revisiting what we have learned in the past to transcend beyond the messages we're told about bad things being good for you. So David, I think he's back. If you want to tilt your camera again, we're seeing you. There you go. We'll
All right.
I just, while we were waiting for you to come back, I was explaining how this phenomenon with glyphosate out in the world is not dissimilar from, and you write about this in your book, about how DDT was in the environment. And there was the whole process of going through and fighting to take that off of the market. And I was also saying that, we might even draw the same kind of parallel conclusion with big tobacco. I mean, 2 generations ago, doctors were advertising tobacco as being good for you, and you see them smoking cigarettes in ads. So it seems like we're repeating history again, but it seems even more critical this time around.
Did you know that the head of the Environmental Protection Agency went on 60 Minutes and drank a teaspoon of DDT to prove that it was safe, and then 2 years later died of horrible multiple, melanomas and cancers? This is real, you guys. And our farmers are being brainwashed. Our politicians are being brainwashed. Our doctors and research facilities are literally being bribed and bought to produce studies that show, that inconclusive evidence is their goal. And they could create enough confusion, then they're going to create people. If you're arguing about something, you're not changing it. If there's 50% of people on one side and 50% on another, they know that no change is going to come. And so they're spending a lot of money to confuse us, a lot of money to turn us against each other. I have farmer friends who argue with me and spray glyphosate on their wife's organic farms to prove a point. I've seen it happen. And there is a battle going on for the heart and the soul of our children. And this is not to be ignored. It is our responsibility to be the protectors of our children and our children's children, 7 generations of children. It is our responsibility to take care of that come after us. And we are so greedy. We allow corporate greed, and we allow supposed efficiencies and advancements in technology to be more important than safety, than life itself. There is nothing more important than life itself. And those same people who are fighting for human rights across the board, who are fighting for the protection of fetuses in different ways. And I'm asking you, are you fighting for the protection of this fetus in this way? I mean, where is the hypocrisy? Are we protecting babies or are we not? It's time to stand up as a country, as a nation, to unite under one single flag, that we defend our children, okay? That we defend ourselves. And I'm so angry right now that we're being lied to. I'm so angry that we're being deceived. I'm so angry that us and our children are being poisoned. And I can't believe that more people aren't angry like me. I can't believe more people aren't wanting to scream from the rooftops that there is a tremendous injustice going on, that millions and millions and millions of Americans are suffering and dying every day because of corporate greed, because of a conspiracy of silence about a poison that's pervasive in our environment, that's causing our children and our parents and ourselves to suffer at unprecedented levels. And we're sitting by like a bunch of frogs in warm water. And it's time to jump, you guys. It's time to jump.
And so can you tell us, in your estimation, and this isn't so much in your book, but because you're addressing it now, it's important, like who is aware, and what organizations are doing the good work, and if we're going to refer our viewers to align, right? So you might say, some people might just say, well, you know, what can I do about it? I'm just one person. So if they were to find organizations or people with whom they can ally, what would you recommend? Who's doing the work and really being aware of it?
Right to your congressman, to your representative, to your state assemblyman. This is where the action. You need to let them know that you care. You need to write to your food producers, to your grocery store, and tell them, I'm going to boycott the food that you're selling me. How dare you sell me poison? Why aren't you testing the food before you put it on the shelves to sell it to me? We need to make a big, big noise, you guys. We really do. And I believe that until we do, the world's not going to change. So, and I apologize. I've got all the things going wrong. I have dogs barking. I have my signal fading. I'm not a good guest right now, and I apologize for that. But I am really hoping that it won't just be my voice, that all of you will be inspired by my passion, that you'll find that fire in your belly yourself, that you will become a defender of this planet, of this earth, of our children, of yourself. And I'm not crazy. You know, I'm an educated person. I'm an author of books. I had a highly rated talk show in New York City. I am fighting for an injustice that I see, and I hope that you will too.
Yeah. Well, Dave, so first, you know, no worries about losing the signal, the dogs barking and such. I mean, your passion is definitely overcome all of that. So I just want to put your mind at ease with regard to that. And also, I just want to say I appreciate your passion for this. And it's certainly and in alignment with what we in Humanities team are always talking about in the spirit of oneness. I mean, and what you've written about, you know, it absolutely underscores that our belief that we're one, like we're all interrelated, interconnected, interdependent, and that is for the good. And it's also, as evidenced when we do toxic things, it's that toxicity that we share as well. And I just appreciate what you're saying about our need to get out there and to demand that we can, should, and must do better.
Absolutely. And again, I hope that you'll take some time to let people know. You know, the very first show that Dr. Oz did this season was about glyphosate. And he is warning people about the danger, but we want to introduce people to the solution. And I appreciate you having me on today, you know, and allowing me to outline the problem and to offer that solution, because, you know, without a solution, we're hopeless. And when we have hope, we have everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back now to more of what's in the book, so that people, and we're actually going to give you a link to it, so you can, Dave, generous to offer the book, the e-version of the book to you. But in the meantime, before we get there, just so for people who might be struggling with this and may or may not even realize it, can you tell us, like, what are the warning signs of that disrupted microbiome? Can you give us a sense of of what's might be happening in someone, so that they can become aware of their need to repair?
You know, poor digestion and a foggy head, like bad memory. You sometimes lose your balance and you don't know why. You have a hard time waking up in the morning. You know, you tend to rely upon stimulants to get through the day. You find that you You know, you don't remember things the way that you should. You find that, you know, you're scattered in your work. You can't seem to focus on one thing. Obviously, leaky gut, you know, cramping, gut pain, headaches, body aches, you know, irregular menstrual cycle, you know, constipation, GERD, you know, obviously inflammation. Diseases caused by inflammation are one of the worst things. We are able to reduce C-reactive protein by 75% in just 6 weeks. And C-reactive protein is the #1 biomarker for heart disease. So with Biomedic, with this product, we're not just eliminating glyphosate and protecting your gut and helping you defend against all those potential outcomes of glyphosate poisoning. We're also reducing dramatically the single #1 biomarker for all autoimmune diseases, you know, for heart disease, and obviously for osteoarthritis. And so this is a powerful phytochemical like ally for your body. And I want to ask everybody, if you buy soap and shampoo and deodorant and toothpaste and toilet paper, then you know that external hygiene is extremely important. Q-tips, right? And all of that. But what we don't ever think about is internal hygiene. Think about all the things you do for external hygiene. You wash your hair, you brush your teeth, you clean your ears, and all of those things. You clean yourself after you toilet, but what caused that toilet? Think about it. That was inside you. What are we doing about that? And so I want to thank you sincerely for having me as a guest on your show today and being able to have my voice heard. And I want to encourage everybody to think about internal cleansing and what that could mean to you, you know, whether it be parasites or whether it be glyphosate, you know, whether it be inflammation, heavy metals, you know, aluminum. Let's just get that. Let's get rid of that as soon as we can. And I know that because of my schedule, I'm here. My workers have arrived on site, and I'm afraid they might disrupt us any moment. So I'm just giving you that warning.
Gotcha. Okay, because we have about 15 minutes or so left, and I just want to make sure if you're able to stay on, we'd love to continue the discussion for the time we have left, and we'll just kind of we'll roll with it. If it works for you, we'll roll with it.
Well, I'm here.
All right. So, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you know, people have heard the words leaky gut syndrome. And could you give us a little bit more detail on exactly what's happening with that? So I'm somewhat familiar with it, but like what exactly is the damage that's done with leaky gut syndrome? Can you give us a little bit more detail on what is actually happening?
Absolutely. So gut permeability is the maybe official phrase for what we call leaky gut syndrome. And gut permeability means when something is permeating or passing through that should not be doing that, right? And so imagine if you had an air balloon and it had a leak in it, and then pretty soon the balloon would be flat, right? Your tire had a leak in it, and pretty soon it would be flat. So it's not so much a leak, we call it leaky gut, but I'd like to call it gut permeability. It's more as though you had, you know, galoshes on when you're walking through the rain and they had holes in them and your feet were getting wet, okay? So stuff that's not supposed to be getting in is getting in, and that's happening to your blood. So in your gut, you have this awesome fence, and the fence has barbed wire on top of it, okay? Now, the fence is called villi, and villi are these magical hairs that absorb nutrients and move them into your blood. And on top of that fence is the barbed wire that keeps stuff that isn't supposed to come in from coming in, okay? And that's called friendly bacteria. The friendly bacteria, or these microorganisms, sit on top of the villi, just like the barbed wire sits on top of the fence. Now, when the barbed wire gets taken away, when the bacteria die, then a bunch of stuff starts climbing over the fence, okay? Now the villi start to open up like this instead of be really closed, and the protective layer on top is gone. So when that protective layer on top is gone and the villi open up, we call that leaky gut or gut permeability. Now, if it's being done right, the bacteria are gobbling up all of the toxins, turning them into poop, and putting them out your body. They're allowing the nutrients to match up with other bacteria that fall down into the villi that are gobbled up and moved into your blood. A very efficient system. But when that system breaks down, we call it leaky gut, or officially increased gut permeability. Now with our product, we proved reduced gut permeability, dramatically reduced gut permeability in a very short time.
So I appreciate that illustration. That was really perfect. And going back to your point about repair, so it's repairing that barbed wire is part of the equation here, right? So they were strengthening that back up.
When we put the barbed wire back up, stuff stops crawling over and damaging the fence, and the fence could be repaired. So the bacteria create that wall of defense. Underneath that wall of defense, the villi begin to grow strong, and we have a clinically proven ingredient invented by a Nobel Prize-winning laureate who discovered vitamin C. The same Nobel Prize-winning laureate invented and created the ingredient that repairs, lengthens, and strengthens villi. So we are doing a big service to the body with this ingredient in the product to lengthen and strengthen the villi within your gut.
And then you had mentioned in the book as well, so like there's a ratio of that good bacteria, and the way that you put it in the book is like it's 85%, right? So 85% good bacteria is equals health, gut health. And
yes.
And people who are really suffering from all of those maladies that you mentioned a few minutes ago, like what would their ratio be typically?
So SIBO, right? SIBO is so common today. And so severe, intestinal bacterial overgrowth is called SIBO, S-I-B-O. And the first thing we need to do is get rid of that severe intestinal bacterial overgrowth because it overwhelms the good bacteria. Instead of having 85% good bacteria and a little bit of bad bacteria, right, that your body is fighting, you have a whole bunch of bad bacteria and a little bit of good bacteria. And that flips the table, turns the table upside down. So severe intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, is one of the first things that's going to be addressed with this cleansing and rebuilding of the gut.
Nice. Okay. Very good. And then, so then to your point, so this repair is absolutely possible, and really we have the opportunity to give our bodies the ability to really heal themselves, right? So going back to that idea that that erroneous notion that, well, I'm just going to have these maladies because it's part of getting older. The truth is that really we give our bodies the opportunity through repair to restore themselves ultimately. And that's really what the bottom line is. It's at the end of the day, the products are just helping our bodies create the conditions for their own healing. Would you say that?
So imagine a computer. You fix the computer, but the computer's going to do all the work. You're not going to do all the computations. You're just going to fix the computer. Maybe you just need to plug it in. Maybe you just need to reboot it. You know what I mean? Maybe you just need to clean out some cookies. But when you do, your computer is unleashed to do magnificent things. Your body is a microprocessor deluxe. You know what I mean? And if it has too many cookies, if it has a virus, then we got to do something about it. And this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, and it seems to me that there's like a shift in our mindset, right? So moving beyond that we're actually born to be healthy, beings filled with life and vitality. I mean, you had said that, life is sacred, and that life, if we take care of it and we're mindful of it, that life will reward us abundantly.
And now remember, though, that the appreciation for life is going to be directly triggered by something physiological called hormones. And the number one hormone is going to be, as you know, serotonin. And serotonin is produced in your gut. So if you want to wake up every morning feeling optimistic and awesome about life, you'd better fix your gut, because that's actually driving the way that you feel about this beautiful gift called life. And without enough serotonin, you're going to find it difficult to be in appreciation. And I guarantee you, anytime you're depressed, anytime you're angry, if you go into appreciation, it disappears. Okay? Anger and depression disappear when you go into appreciation for the wondrous thing that is life. And you cannot be in that state without proper serotonin. And this is why gut health is vitally important to the depression epidemic, to the addiction epidemic, to the obesity epidemic. It's directly tied to the gut, you guys, straight up, without question. And we have the answer, in case I haven't said that enough.
Yeah. Well, Dave, it's been just such an honor to have you here. And again, let me just say, I'm deeply appreciative for your passion on this and your encouragement. I mean, your encouragement of just letting all of us know that health is not only possible, but it really is it's our inheritance. It's absolutely our inheritance. And all of the advocacy that you're doing and then you're encouraging us to have is really part of living in oneness, as we would say here in Humanities Team. So just deep bow to you for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
I could only say that the pleasure is mine. My family was from Spain. They would say, la gusto es mío. And I look forward to having, I always say that I hope that your tomorrow will be better than your yesterday, because we spent time together today. And so that's my prayer. And I appreciate you being part of it.
Great. Amen. Thank you, David. And you can get the ebook for free from David. Garth will bring up our slides here in a moment. If you go to toxicfoodsolution.com, you can download the book, The Toxin That Came to Dinner, and it provides more detail, of course, on what we talked about in this interview, plus David's solution and treatment. And then, so feel free to go there to check that out. And then next slide, let's just talk about real quick the Conscious Business Enterprise, which is a division of Humanities Team. It's our program for training conscious business change agents. And you can check that out at cbenterprise.com. And you can also sign our Conscious Business Declaration, 7 Principles for Conscious Business, a new standard for business in the 21st century. Go to humanitiesteam.org, Conscious Business Declaration, or you could simply go to Conscious Business Declaration, all is one word.org. And if the principles resonate with you, we invite you to sign that declaration online. And then you also can go to humanitiesteam.org to sign our oneness declaration. So this is our declaration of oneness for all of humanity on earth. There are several principles that are related to the Conscious Business Declaration, but more on a universal level. But the main message is that we are all one, interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. So with that, again, my thanks. Oh, one more thing, join our community circle. You go to humanitiesteam.org, join community circle. You can do that for $10 a month or $100 per year and get access to all of our great programming, and also just be deeply supported as an advocate for oneness in the world. And we really would be honored to have you there. This program is brought to you by Humanities Team, and there's our cast of characters who are devoted to helping enhance your awareness of oneness Steve Farrell's our executive director, Dee Meyer, Nanette Kennedy, Garth Catterall, who's our producer of the program today, Christine Glenn, World Regions Coordinator. You can go to humanitiesteam.org for more information. And I am Stephen Donaco, the Program Director for our Conscious Business Enterprise. So thanks everyone for watching. We certainly appreciate it. And until next time, peace and namaste.